મિત્રો, અત્યારે હું બેંગ્લોરમાં છું અને કોની સાથે બેઠો છું એ તમે આ ચિત્ર ઉપરથી તરત ઓળખી પાડશો. નંદન નીલેકણી. નંદન નીલેકણી નું બીજું નામ છે આધાર કાર્ડ. આ આધારની કલ્પના, એ કલ્પનાનું એક્ઝિક્યુશન કર્યા પછી જે સુપ્રીમ કોર્ટ સુધીની આખી લડાઈ ચાલી, તે બધામાં નંદન નીલેકણી કેન્દ્રમાં છે. એમની પાસેથી આપણે ઘણા બધા સવાલોના જવાબો જાણીશું. ઓફકોર્સ ગુજરાતીમાં હું એમને નહીં પૂછી શકું, કારણ કે એમનું ગુજરાતી મારા અંગ્રેજી જેવું જ છે, એટલે અમે અંગ્રેજીમાં વાતચીત કરવાની કોશિશ કરીશું. એમનું એક બીજું પુસ્તક છે રીબૂટિંગ ઇન્ડિયા. આ સૌથી પહેલું ઇમેજિનિંગ ઇન્ડિયા અને રીબૂટિંગ ઇન્ડિયા. આ બે પુસ્તકો ગુજરાતીમાં હજુ આવ્યા નથી. આઈ વિલ ટ્રાય કે કમસે કમ ગુજરાતીમાં એની ઝલક તો આવે જ. બેઉ આખા પુસ્તકો ગુજરાતીમાં કરવા જેવા છે, જો કોઈ પબ્લિશરની હિંમત ચાલતી હોય તો. કારણ કે નંદન નીલેકણી માત્ર એક ટેકનોક્રેટ નથી, એ આઈડિયાઝના માણસ છે. સમાજ વિશેનો આઈડિયા, શિક્ષણ વિશેનો આઈડિયા. અત્યારે અમે જ્યાં બેઠા છીએ તે એમની શિક્ષણની એક બહુ મોટી એનજીઓનું ખૂબ જબરજસ્ત કામ કરી રહી છે. એ એનજીઓની ઓફિસમાં અત્યારે અમે બેઠા છીએ. અને દેશ વિશે મિત્રો, 7,000 કરોડની જેમની નેટવર્થ ગણાય છે, છાપામાં મેં વાંચ્યું છે, એ માણસ ₹1 પગારે સરકારમાં જોડાય છે. બધા જ વિઘ્નોનો સામનો કરે છે. દરેકને પોતાનાથી 3-4 રેન્ક નીચી હોય એવા સરકારી અધિકારીઓની પાસે જઈને એ સમજાવે છે કે આધારની જરૂરિયાત શું છે. આખી એક બહુ લાંબી કથા છે આધાર વિશેની. આપણે પ્રિન્ટમાં બી એ લખીશું, દરેક રીતે જોઈશું. આ આધાર જે લગભગ અત્યારે તમે જોઈ રહ્યા છો, બધાની પાસે આધાર કાર્ડ છે. એની પાછળની જે કથા છે એ મીડિયામાં અમુક રીતે આવે છે. ખરેખર શું છે આધાર, એના વિશે જાણીશું. Nandanji, welcome to my Gujarati viewers. It's a really great privilege to have you on my YouTube channel. And I would like to first know from you, how come you are interested in technology right from your childhood, and how did you study in IIT, and how did you co-founded Infosys?
Sure. Thank you, Saurabh Ji. And in fact, the co-author of my book is Gujarati.
Viral Shah.
So I do have a Gujarati connection. So I think, I grew up earlier in Bangalore and then in a small town called Dharwad, which is not far from here. It's very famous for music and,
yes,
and so on. And there, all my cousins and my elder brother all were doing engineering. So I also felt like doing engineering and I wanted to go to IIT. So I studied from there and went to IIT Bombay, and I was there for a wonderful time. And there I saw the power of computers and what could be possible with computers. But those days it was still in the era of mainframes. We didn't have all these new computers. And then when I left, that was the time in 1979 when mini computers had become popular. And there was a company in Bombay which represented a mini computer company where Mr. Nandan Nilekani was the head of the software group. So I got a job there. And then under his leadership, all of us left and started Infosys in 1981. And ever since those days, I'm a strong believer in technology and software. And over the years, I first saw the power of technology for solving business problems, because that's what I did in my earlier life. But when I started looking at India's challenges, I realized that India's challenges could also be solved using technology. That's what I realized the last 10-15 years.
Nandanji, what was your very first breakthrough through technology during Infosys, during the beginning of Infosys?
No, I think the Infosys, the vision of Infosys was to create a great, a very highly, a company with a very good reputation, a company that was global, a company that used technology to solve problems of clients around the world, and leveraging the great human capital that India had, the smart people in India, the technology savvy people in India. So that was the backdrop. So I think we worked on all kinds of solutions for apparel, solutions for financial applications.
Can you, sorry to interrupt you, can you elaborate it in layman's language, because Gujaratis know Infosys just for one reason कि उसके शेयर के भाव बहुत ही बढ़ते हैं और अच्छे बनते हैं. But for non-share bazaar Gujarati people, can you just elaborate it in simple?
Sure. So think of an example that somebody has a textile factory and he makes garments. You know, for example, in Ahmedabad there are a lot of people who make garments, or in Surat. So they need to buy material, they need to cut the material, they need to stitch the material, they need to pack the material, put it in a warehouse. Then when some retailer orders, they have to ship it to the retailer. You know, all these kind of activities are there in a business. And when you do the business in a small way, you can do it, you know, manually with people. But if you're going to make millions or lakhs pieces of garments, if you want to export them, all that requires some system to make it work properly. Or if you have a very big warehouse with thousands of units of pieces of goods, how do you pick the right one and send it to the right address? All this requires technology and systems. So the work we did was building software to support such business activities.
How did Infosys got recognition globally and won their hearts?
I think because we were very, very focused on making our customers happy and satisfied. We didn't really have much money, or we are not backed by a big business group. We were, in some sense, India's first startup, because all of us were from, you know, ordinary backgrounds, children of professionals. So none of us came from a business background. But by sheer dint of hard work and satisfying the customer and showing how we could use software to help them solve their business problems, we built a reputation. And much of the reputation is word of mouth. You do a good job for somebody, they recommend you to somebody else, like that. And so the company grew. But the real growth of India happened in the real growth of Infosys happened in the 90s. After the economic liberalization, it became easier to do business. So our real growth took off in 91, 92.
After doing after spending much of your golden years in Infosys, suddenly you are having a job in the government at 1 rupee. Was it annual or monthly payment?
1 rupee a year.
A year. Okay.
Actually, I got salary, but I put the money into the Prime Minister's Relief Fund. So
Right.
I didn't take any money.
Right. So how did that idea came into your mind that now I don't want to make money out of my money, but want to do something for the country?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. You know, I've been, as I told you, in the last 10, 12 years, I've been thinking about how technology can be used for national development. So I've been, you know, in my mind I was dealing with that. And in the year 2008, I wrote this book,
Imagining India,
where I talked about a wide sweep of ideas, and also talked about how technology can be used to solve India's development challenges. And specifically, I wrote about the ID in the book and how ID is important. Parallelly at that time in 2006, the government had started a project to come up with a unique ID. And after 3 years, in January of 2009, they had actually approved the creation of this body called Unique Identification Authority of India. And but they had not put anybody in charge. There was no one. It was just a decision. There was no one in charge. So in 2009 June, after the elections, I spoke with the government and offered to take up this job, because I felt that this was a good example of how technology at scale could make a direct impact if every Indian had a unique ID. So it was something that appealed to me. And you know, I had worked at Infosys for almost 30 years. I had done every role. It was, you know, I had handed over as CEO. So we had one of my colleagues CEO, and all of them, my partners and colleagues at Infosys, were kind enough to say, okay, maybe you can go and do something for the nation. And so I got their permission to leave Infosys, and I moved to Delhi. I used to commute every week. I would come back and forth. My family was in Bangalore, and I started like all over again.
What was the first idea of a unique ID before you joined, and what were the inputs you delivered?
No, I think if you go back and look at the approval of the unique ID, which was approved by the cabinet in January of 2009, and the details were issued by the then Planning Commission, they done an excellent job in defining what it should be, what a unique ID should be. They were very clear it was a number, that it could be the foundation for other things. So all that was well laid out. I think the value addition that we brought in, not just me, but the team we had, both from the bureaucracy as well as from private sector, was how to think of it as an ID platform, how to use technology at scale, how to build a system for 1 billion people, how to provide online authentication. These were all slightly futuristic at that time.
They did not have any idea about this.
I mean, they thought of giving a number and using it to remove duplicates.
Okay.
We sort of took the idea but made it a more platform.
But how to go ahead with that? They did not have any technological idea.
There were some ideas. You know, at that time the idea was to take the voter ID database,
Okay,
and take the ration card database of different states and do some matching and make a list. But my view was that
there was no biometrics at that.
No, there was no biometrics. My view was that was not the way to go, and that we have no choice but to individually enroll everyone, and we had to have a very robust way of eliminating duplicates, so that a person got only one number. That's the heart of UID, is one number, one person. For that we had to, the only way we could do it, because India, half the people don't have ID, was to use biometric deduplication as the basis for establishing uniqueness. And then we said that if for 1 billion people, just taking 10 fingerprints is not enough. It has to be 10 fingerprints plus the iris of both the eyes plus the photograph. And that combined set was sufficient to establish uniqueness. Now this had not been done by anybody else in the world.
Nowhere.
No, nothing of that. The largest biometric database was about 100 million people. So we are doing 10 times.
That visa,
US visa. So we are in uncharted territory. We are going into area where no one had been. So, but our assessment and our research showed that it was possible. And even the designing of it was very, very complex. But we had very fine talent, so we were able to get it done.
Who were the initial teammates?
I think we had an excellent, extraordinary team. I was very fortunate that from within the government, about 5-6 people joined me in the beginning. One of them is Mr. Ramsevak Sharma, who is now the chairman of TRAI. At that time he was an additional secretary in the IAS from the Jharkhand cadre, and he was from IIT Kanpur. He was a technologist, he was a programmer in the bureaucracy, so he knew technology very well, and a very hard-driving, action-oriented officer. So he came in as the CEO of this organization. Then I had an excellent officer from the audit and account called Ganga, who was the CFO. And then I had a PS from Karnataka called Shrikar, who was my, who helped to navigate the whole system, and so on. So I had many people. And then also we got a very good team of people who were not from government, but who had worked on tech projects. Shrikant Nadamani, who was the head of technology, Vivek Raghavan, who was PhD in robotics, Pramod Verma, who was the chief architect, Sanjay Jain, who was the chief product manager. So we got some great people.
Some of them left their highly paying jobs in US
in Google, and everybody was
came to you.
Yeah, so I think Pramod was working in IBM, Sanjay Jain was in Google, Shrikant was, he came back from Intel. So all these guys were top. Jagdish Babu, who came from Intel. So all these guys were... And
they were paid almost 1/10 or 1/100.
So obviously they would have made much more money if they had gone to America or something. But they were all, I think all of us, both the private sector people who came as well as the government people who came, we all had the same mission to make this happen and reach everybody. So there was a sense of passion, mission, getting it done.
In the initial days of Aadhar, what was your biggest challenge? Was it a technological challenge or some other non-technological challenge?
I think there were a set of technology challenges and a set of broader political challenges, if you want to call it. The technological challenges were, of course, this was uncharted territory. Nobody had done this before. Nobody had done 1 billion people. how to build this at scale. All that, there were lots and lots of challenges. But I think our team was able to deal with that, and over the first 2 years, they were able to solve a lot of these issues. But the other challenge was navigating the system, the government system, getting approvals, getting the budget approved, getting state governments to agree, all kinds of.
Can you just narrate me in some detail your experiences, because you were cabinet secretary rank, cabinet minister rank, so you could have called everybody to your office, but instead you traveled across the country and met them.
Yeah, no, I think this is an important point, is that when you have a new idea which requires national support, you have to go out and evangelize your idea. You have to go and tell people about the idea and ask for their support, because this is a massive change. So anyway, the technology was being built, and it would take about 18 months to build the technology.
What were your bittersweet experiences during that time?
It was a fantastic experience, because I went to every state. I went to Kerala, I went to Jharkhand, I went to Assam, I went to Bihar. I went to parts of India I had never seen before, because my earlier travel was only New York and London and all that. Now I was traveling to Ranchi and Patna and all that. So it was a very good experience for me. But I think the very fact that I went there to meet them and made a presentation and asked for their support, that itself was I came to Gujarat, met Mr. Modi. So I went everywhere. I came to Karnataka, met Mr. Yediyurappa, I did everything. So by going to each person individually, and him and the officers of that state, it was sending a message that I want to make this work and I need your help. And I got a fantastic service. I remember going to Bihar, and I had lunch with Mr. Nitish Kumar and Mr. Sushil Modi, who at that time CM and Deputy CM, and again now they're CM and Deputy CM. And they very well understood what we were talking about. Then they talked about how people from Bihar go to other parts of India and how identity is so important for them. And we discussed how we could enroll all of them. And they talked about the fact that maybe during Karwa Chauth or something, they all come back to Bihar. Maybe we can enroll them at that time. So lots of ideas. So everybody had the ideas. When I met Mr. Modi, he spent almost 1.5 hours with me and talked about many things, and including how this can make a difference. So I think reaching out to everyone is very important. And even I had a very simple philosophy which explains this. I never made anyone come to my office, because I felt the moment you make someone come to your office, then you're sort of saying, come to me. I don't believe in that. So I always went to them, and I did that even when they came to Delhi. So if a chief minister came to Delhi, I would go to, in Delhi, every state has their bhavan. Bihar Bhavan, Karnataka Bhavan, UP Bhavan, right? And that is in some sense like their little presence in Delhi. It's like an embassy, right? It's their land in Delhi. So I always made it a point to go to Bihar Bhavan to meet the CM. I went to Chhattisgarh Bhavan to meet Dr. Raman Singh. I made it a point to go to their office to meet them. Which is just my way of showing respect.
What was the initial targets of Aadhar? In which field you wanted to implement Aadhar concept, and then it was in a broader concept
Sure, that's a great point. See, in terms of numbers, when we had the first meeting of the cabinet meeting on this topic on August 12th of 2009, I proposed that we would enroll and issue numbers to 600 million, 60 crore people by the time the government was, by 2014. And we achieved that goal. So that was the numeric goal. But also in terms of the use case, our focus was those government programs where people got a benefit. So they got some scholarship or pension or Narega payment or ration thing. Because we said that if people realize that with this ID, they can then get access to a benefit, they will come forward. And that's what we found. When we did the enrollment across the country, we set up, at peak we had 35,000 enrollment stations across the country, a massive exercise. we had absolutely no issue in getting people to enroll. People would come in the morning and stand in long lines and enroll because they said that the Sarkar is giving this ID. And I'm sure that once we get this ID will be a passport to many things in the future. So they understood that idea. So we had no issue to get people to enroll. And we got to 600 million people by March of 2014.
And how was the base of use was widened?
Well, first it was used for entitlements. The big big use case for the middle class was LPG subsidy. You know, earlier LPG cylinders were sold at a cheaper subsidized price. Now we unbundled that and said LPG cylinder will be sold at market price and the difference will go into people's bank accounts. And this was a very successful program because something like 14 crore people, or 140 million families get LPG subsidy. So they all link their Aadhar number to their bank account and every time they buy a cylinder, they get money into the bank account. So they saw the power of this idea. And that also led to a lot of savings because by putting Aadhar number, the government removed all duplicate and host and multiple users of LPG. You know, you suddenly found that one fellow had some 30 connections and all that. So all that got cleaned up. And whatever sort of savings they got, they were able to put that into that Ujala program. So it's a good example of how you make one program more efficient and use that saving to do something else.
Then Aadhar was to be joined with bank accounts.
Yeah, but that was required. See, to do transfer of money, you had to link the Aadhar to the bank account. So
And then PAN also.
that came in later. So the government...
After 2014?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the new government, Prime Minister Modi, they took the decision that there were a lot of PAN duplicates. See, there are only about 4 crore taxpayers in the country, 40 million. But there were 20 crore PAN cards. You know, so obviously, a lot of people had PAN cards or duplicate PAN cards, didn't pay taxes. So they decided to use Aadhar to make PANs unique. So that decision was taken later. And they made Aadhar mandatory for PAN in the money bill, in the finance bill, which the Supreme Court also had upheld that decision.
Okay. Just yesterday, Supreme Court heard both the parties and said that we will give the decision after some time, maybe after the court opens after the vacation. Were you disappointed when this Aadhar controversy was made into a Supreme Court case?
No, I think I was not disappointed. I mean, I think somebody has a different point of view, they're welcome to go to the court. I think in some sense, the Aadhar case has helped a lot of things in India. I think the Aadhar PAN case was upheld and therefore it showed that there is value in uniqueness in tax payment and that we need to eliminate black money and all that stuff. I think before the Aadhar case was the fundamental right to privacy case, where again I think it's a very balanced judgment, saying that yes, you have a fundamental right to privacy, but there can be certain situations where the state can circumscribe that, you know, protection of revenue, law and order, security, or to give entitlements, those kind of things. And as long as there's a law and it's proportional and reasonable, it's fine. So they have laid down a framework for on privacy. So now the Aadhar case is simply to say whether Aadhar meets those criteria or not. They have laid down the criteria. And as you know, it was the second longest running oral arguments in the
after Keshwanand's
history of the Supreme Court,
yes,
after Keshwanand Bharati. So that's quite a thing. And even previously the fundamental right was a 9-judge bench. This is a 5-judge bench. So I didn't realize this was going to become such a big deal. So, but I think I've been closely following the proceedings in the court. I think the judges have fully understood Aadhar, fully understood. When you look at the quality of questions they ask, it's a phenomenal understanding both of Aadhar as a technology platform as well as the Aadhar Act. They have understood everything. And I'm very confident that they will give a very balanced, considered judgment at the right time.
Along with Aadhar, you created a UPI platform. Can you tell us something more about it?
Yeah, so UPI was something that I took up after 2014 because I'm an advisor to the National Payment Corporation of India, which is India's payment utility, which is owned by all the banks. It's a non-profit company headquartered in Mumbai. So we felt that as mobile phones become more and more prevalent, there should be a simple way to pay using a mobile phone. And you know, we saw the rise of feature phones, smartphones, all that. And India didn't really have a very good mobile payment system. Any bank account to any bank account, any mobile phone to any mobile phone, nothing in real time. So the NPCI had built a previous platform called IMPS, Immediate Payment System, which was very successful in credit remittances. So it's used by Indians to send money back home from the cities. But they didn't have debit. So we had to do something. So that's how the idea of UPI came, which is a next generation payment system. And that was of course built by NPCI. I was a strategic advisor for that. And today it's probably the world's most advanced payment system, very successful. Pre-demonetization, October 2016, it did 1 lakh transactions a month. Last month it did 19 crore transactions. And I think it will hit 100 crore transactions in 1 year. So this is going to be fundamental to moving India to cashless economy. Because to move India to cashless economy, you have to make digital payments simple, cheap, instant. So all that is done with UPI.
Okay, UPI platform, as I understand, it's like free for all.
It's an open platform. You have access to the platform comes to the banking system. So only banks can access payments. But banks can then have partnerships with innovative companies so that they can do it, or they can do in-app purchase. So inside the app only I can use the payment. So it's all kinds of stuff to make it very easy to use.
So in digitalizing the economy, this is going to be a major factor.
Oh, absolutely. Because there are different kinds of payments. One is person to person. That is, I send you 100 rupees, that's a P2P one. The other is person to online merchant. So I buy something on an online site, then I'm paying online. Or there is person to physical merchant. I walk into a shop, I have to make a payment, I buy some groceries, I have to pay. So you need a payment system that can deal with all these things. So it's designed to deal with all kinds of payment types.
Nandanji, as far as Aadhar is concerned, do you fear, I mean, we are not passing any judgment for the judgments of Supreme Court, but do you fear that the opposition of Aadhar, all those lawyers which came from the opposition parties, the big guns, were they opposing actually to save their skin or their, what do you call, their system's skin?
Well, I don't want to get into the motives of why people did what they have. Their arguments were in 3 areas. First was implementation, saying that somebody should not be denied a benefit because they don't have Aadhar, or somebody should not be denied when they have Aadhar but their authentication does not work. So that's an implementation thing, and the system has very clearly explained how they will deal with that, so that's not an issue. Second is this whole theory that that the idea of Aadhar is to create a surveillance society. That is very much not the purpose, because by definition a surveillance system is something that gathers data. Aadhar does not gather any data, it only says ID, X is a Sham is Sham or whatever. So it's clearly an ID, it's a dumb ID system. And third thing, the privacy thing also, I think the Aadhar system has handled that very well. They've introduced new features called tokenization, so that when a private company uses Aadhar, they don't store the Aadhar number, they store a variant. So you can't even match 2 databases to get somebody. So lots of things have been done. So I think it meets all the requirements of security, non-surveillance, privacy, and implementation. So I'm very confident that it will.
Can anybody misuse Aadhar?
I don't know what, it depends on what is that misuse, because this is a big word. But I think obviously in any system, somebody may come up with using it in a way that may not be appropriate. But for that there are laws and other things. It's like anything else. In a society, if somebody does a crime, you have a law to do that. So,
I was talking to Sanjay Jain. He told that a social security number of America was highly misused during 90s and bank frauds were done. Is there anything parallel to those kind of frauds which we fear?
Well, I think, I mean, obviously you have to always be on a guard, but there are the Aadhar system is far more robust, because there it's just a number. Somebody else can use a number. Here the number needs to be authenticated. So you need to do a biometric authentication or something. So you can't just use, even if I give you my number, you can't use it because you can't authenticate me. And for all financial transactions in the West, essentially they have only one-factor authentication, which makes it more prone to fraud. In India, we have two-factor authentication. So when you make a payment, you have to do two verifications: card plus password or phone plus biometric. So two-factor authentication dramatically reduces fraud. So there are lots of things in India which I think are going to be much better.
After the judgment of Supreme Court on Aadhar, what do you think, that your tensions would be released or increased?
My tensions are already released, because I am very confident that the Supreme Court will give a very balanced judgment on Aadhar.
And what next?
I continue to, I obviously am very keen that India's digital journey continues. I am also, as you know, involved with the GST, and because Infosys is building the GST platform. So in that capacity, I worked on the simplification of GST. And last few months that has been going on, and I'm very happy that a few days back, the GST Council has agreed to a simplification, which is a sort of a fusion of suggestions that we made and some of the government guys made. So I think that's a big project. Then I was involved with the design of the FASTag, electronic tolling system, which means that cars can drive on national highways and don't have to stop. They can just drive through and automatic debit of their account. So, and then we have this initiative here called EkStep, which is looking how to fix India's literacy and numeracy.
Can you just elaborate, because we are sitting here in EkStep office.
Right.
Can you just give me some more ideas about it?
So the idea was, how do we address the challenge of India's literacy and numeracy? Because in India in the last 15 years, if you go back and look at, on August 15, 2000, Prime Minister Vajpayee announced the Saurabh Shah Abhiyan, and the goal was universal education for all, which is a very bold and ambitious goal. And I think the enrollment part of that was achieved, in the sense children are coming into school, which was not true. So enrollment has gone up. But what people are finding that while enrollment has gone up, learning outcomes have not improved. They're not learning basic things. And this has been shown. So our thought was, my wife and I have both supported this, because she had worked in education for many decades. Our thought was, is there a way to use technology, smartphone, applications to improve learning outcomes? So that's what this is all about. And we're building this technology again. And we're also helping roll it out, working with the government. So I'm very confident that next year or two, this will have a direct impact on access to learning for millions of kids.
This is non-governmental organization.
It's a non-profit philanthropy.
And whatever you will build, the government will...
Anybody can use it. It's open source.
Okay.
So we put it out in open source, which means anybody can use the software.
Can you just elaborate?
See, what has happened in the last 20 years in the software industry, you had two kinds of software. You had proprietary software and open source software. Proprietary software means it belonged to a company, in which case you paid the company some money to use the software, you paid for the license fees. But there's a parallel movement called open source, where software engineers said, let us build software which anybody can use. So it's a whole open source movement. And today, very large systems are all built using open source, like Linux, which is an operating system, is open source. Hadoop, which is a non-SQL database, open source. MySQL, which is an SQL database, open source, and so lots of them. So
in education field, which will be the parameters of software which you are making?
So, well, we have this thing called EkStep, which is a set of open source tools specifically meant for literacy and numeracy. But beyond that, we're building a larger learning infrastructure called Sunbird, which is completely open source, anybody can use.
This will be for primary education?
No, the Sunbird can be used for any kind of learning. So it's like opened up to multiple options.
At present, I can think of only one question, that after having a net worth of 7,000 crores, what does money mean to you?
Well, I think one is it gives me the freedom to do what I want to do. Second, it gives me a way to have more impact. You know, I can give it away, I can use it for like what we are doing. So it's freedom to do whatever you are to do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. મિત્રો, નંદન નીલકણી પાસે અત્યારે સુપ્રીમ કોર્ટના ચુકાદાની હજુ અમે રાહ જોઈ રહ્યા છીએ, ત્યારે બેઠા છીએ. આઈ વિશ કે સુપ્રીમ કોર્ટનો ચુકાદો આવ્યા પછી નંદનજી સાથે ફરી એકવાર મુલાકાત થાય, કાં તો ઈમેલ ઉપર વાતચીત થાય, કાં તો ફોન ઉપર વાતચીત થાય, અને શક્ય હોય તો આપણે એમને મુંબઈ બોલાવીએ, અમદાવાદ બોલાવીએ, આધાર વિશેની જાણકારી એમની પાસેથી આપણે માણીએ. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ.